since we do not have a lot of time before the tea break, I will jump into my favorite question. You have shown us a lot of slides with a lot of good dreams that was planted in my heart. All the great activities that can happen along the waterfront. To support those facilities, very often we need to have landside facilities to make things happen on water. And before this, Bing looked at this big map and asked me, why is it so straight? Why is the seawall so straight? Can we add curves outside, and can we add things, more interesting thing into the harbor? Now, we have this protection of harbor ordinance. Is this ordinance a blessing to protect us, or is it a curse to frozen things from happening? How do you see this, and how to live with this ordinance?
Hello. I think Vincent's idea is great. Have some experiment. Just say to them, can we have some experiment, temporary, even floating structure, right? And
don't take us to court.
Well, because I think, well, we have the press here. It's an experimental approach. I think because of all, every society have many regulations. And to change regulations take a long time and have many meetings. But I think, Vincent, I'm going to bring some of this back to Vancouver because, we just say, look, let's experiment for 1 or 2 years and then we'll take it away. Then when people get used to it, then I think it is the right approach because otherwise, just too many hurdles, I think.
Anyone? KK? How to deal with it?
Protection of the Harbour Ordinance, like any law, how we can use it. Yes, I think the fundamental principle of the protection of the Harbour Ordinance is to avoid any further reclamation on the harbour so that we can protect it. Because actually the ordinance is very simple. All the major principles are laid down by the court in the process of judicial review, and the government being it must be a law-abiding body, then the government follow very strict, the legal principle laid down by the court. The thing is, if we cannot add further reclamation, then perhaps if you want to have a curved seawall, we can cut back, you can take out. Actually, that has been done in Seattle. I understand that they have some similar harbor protection ordinance. If you want to reclaim a part, then you need to dig up another part to keep the equilibrium. So I think we may be able to have innovative ideas for doing that. Actually, one point I just would like to add, because I heard about Bing talking about cutting the runway to allow water flow into it. I have been asking, my colleagues in the engineering department not to do that, because I think this old runway is actually the largest built heritage of Hong Kong in terms of size. So I would always like to keep it intact and but we can have innovative use, on top of it to benefit the city.
Okay, thank you, KK.
KK, just a counterpoint. When I say the cut, I mean cut and then cover.
Underneath.
Yes, you need to let the water flow.
Well, just a quick comment on the PHO. Of course, with Nick Brook here, I don't want to say something necessarily negative about it, but I think the PHO actually started as the right thing. It was the right concept. But I think it got to a stage where it becomes so restrictive that, in fact, there are lots of things that could be considered or experimented with, using Vincent's words, that we can't even do. And I think it's time, in my opinion, that we need to perhaps revisit it and perhaps think about what we can do, to make it more appropriate for the planning and development of waterfront. And Mr. Thom, I think, in Vancouver, as I understand, we actually have, some kind of regulation which says, equal cut and fill, right? So basically, in Vancouver's harbourfront, you are allowed to do, I think, some filling, provided that an equal amount of space is being cut, create that water space. Now, is it something that could be considered in Hong Kong? I don't know. But these are sort of things that we could consider, perhaps, right? So, again, it's just one example of many that perhaps we can start revisiting, what is established, under PHO and consider where there are opportunities, for actually using the ordinance to help, the development of our waterfront to be actually more exciting, more vibrant, more diversified, so that actually people can actually use it, rather than saying no reclamation, period, right?
Vincent.
Yes, this PHO is just driving us crazy. when we're trying to design something that is that would enhance the waterfront. And I must say that about this PHO was done with a good intention to preserve the Victoria Harbour. But I think there are things called good reclamation and bad reclamation, I would say. So that at least there are three things that we have been struggling with during our work in the Harbourfront Enhancement Committee and the Harbourfront Commission. One, you can't even build a pier in West Kowloon Cultural District when you want to bring people to the area, right? So everyone, if you go on land, you have to go through that very narrow bottleneck area from Chim Sa Choi, right? So I remember in Lei Yu Mun when they decided to build a pier, they built it outside the Victoria Harbour boundary so that it would not contravene with the PHO. The second thing is this Kai Tak, between Kai Tak and Kwun Tong, what are we going to build with it? A footbridge and a flyover?
Whatever,
no,
it will touch
whatever,
on the PHO.
It will, you will have piers that will stand into the water. And I was so surprised when I hear that it's reclamation, even if you cast a shadow on the water, right? And then the third thing, we have a difficulty in this boardwalk underneath the Island Eastern Corridor, right? And we asked, well, when we have wood deck underneath the flyover, so we are not casting a shadow, right? Because the shadow has already been cast, yes. Right? So, but they said you may be reducing the water surface. So that is also called reclamation, and then I think we are stuck. Well, let's go ahead and build it and let someone sue it and then see and experiment with it.
Yes,
right?
Experiment with it, right? Yeah, you got big support from the audience. I also agree with Bing that have something temporary, have it something event-based. Bring a floating stage, bring something interesting for a few weeks and see whether people support it. And if the community likes it, then we have energy to move on.
So why not rent a series of barges and have a floating bridge as an experiment? Because I don't think there's very much traffic from the outer to the inside. So the inside should be a different jurisdiction over time with the right experiment, that it's not governed by the harbor. It's its own like the False Creek. It's not the Harbor Commission. It's between the Vancouver Police, it's a different group. So we get the shipping people out of it because the shipping things are different scale. We're talking about small scale, small craft, people scale. But I think you just do a series of floating pontoon barges that are interlinked and people just walk across because you have to complete the circle. Otherwise, this runway goes on the end. It's not it'll become a kind of lake, but it's not lake. It's a flashing water lake.
Yeah, we're talking about smart cities. So think smart and think about good solutions. Okay, I think it's time to open to the floor. Any questions from the floor before we have the tea break? Yes. Mr. Zhang, yeah?
I'll try to be as brief as possible. First of all, Vancouver. You have to worry about being invaded by tens of thousands of people from the mainland and take over Vancouver. So if you could spend more time, Mr. Thom, and come up and keep on talking to us about what you've done in Hong Kong, that will help to get things moving. But coming back to Victoria Harbour, Jim and the Harbour Commission and whatnot, they are doing their best. But you mentioned Leon Lai. That opened the eyes of people who want to use the waterfront. So the most important thing right now is to follow up on your idea, get people in each district open their eyes. Let's say Wan Chai, even though the problem of accessibility, we've been talking about that for the past 10, 20 years. And I remember when we did this walk, I can't remember who organized it, from Wan Chai all the way to Central. The question of accessibility, I talked to some of the government younger architects, and they were furious about it. So accessibility is something which we know about. My suggestion, for what it's worth, go down to some of the district councils, open up their eyes to the possibilities, and see where it is possible to get the little things happening along the waterfront. And then you will get them to start pushing the administration to open up more and faster, even sometimes breaking the rules. So please, the most important thing, let's stop talking about pilot schemes. Get into the little things, action through the district councils to break the laws a little if they can get away with it, and get people to come out on the waterfront, no matter how narrow it is.
And there's a district councillor sitting next to you, so please,
but I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to speak on behalf of the district councils, but I will speak on behalf of the Society for Protection of the Harbour, because the Harbour Protection Ordinance was mentioned. So may I read out the law to you? The harbour is to be protected and preserved as a special public asset and a natural heritage of the Hong Kong people, and for that purpose, there shall be a presumption against reclamation in the harbour. That's the law. It doesn't say you can't. The people who say you can't are the bureaucrats who refused to just follow a process and try to promote ideas and let ideas go into the public. So it's not the law that stops us from doing good things on the harbour front. Okay, it's a mindset issue, and I hope this discussion will change that mindset. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Questions? Yes, there's a few hands. How many questions can we take? Maybe just one more? Yes? Two more, okay, two. This gentleman first.
I have two questions. First of all,
Just one please. You can combine.
All right, combine. The first question is to Mr. Thom. In developing the Granville Island in Vancouver, was the city of Vancouver wholly in charge? Was it from a consortium of developers, private interest party? That's my first question. The second question is about the WKCD I saw. Back in 2003, Hong Kong Alternative has been very much involved, try to push for a culture, a park, and a waterfront. Unfortunately, I see the 40 acres has been shrunk to less than 20 acres. Perhaps the Commission can say something about it. Thank you.
Right, Mr. Bing Thom first.
Well, the first question, as I understand it, the Granville Island is owned by the federal government, and now they're trying to ask me to head a committee to localize it so it's controlled more by local people. There is the issue of long-term sustainability, financial, But yes, that's where I think the planning issues were simpler. But the whole issue of the creek, which is your water, was a very mixed jurisdiction that we finally were able to get the Coast Guard and the federal out of it, and it became more local.
And the second question.
I think, excuse me, can I hear the question again?
The second part of it.
The second part was when I saw the various development. They show that WKCD originally had 40 hectares. But from all the understanding we have, it's now shrunk to less than 20 hectares because of property developments and other, functional usage. I believe the waterfront, the parks, and the cultural facility should be the central theme of the whole WKCD. That was my question.
See.
I see.
So is it for Vincent or KK? Would KK know the story better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I understand that. Well, it's still a 40-hectare district, right? And I think the debate of how to use this 40 hectare has been undergoing a lot of discussion since 2001, when the first design competition was launched, when Norman Foster designed a big roof, glass roof, that covered 20 hectares, half of it, the area. And there has been, objections on the architectural design and on the procurement method of giving this to a single developer. And things go on and on. At the end, I think another competition, and after the establishment of this West Kowloon Cultural District Authority, another round of competition was done, and then Norman Foster won again in the overall master planning. Right? So the 40 hectare is actually a mixture of a cultural, leisure, and also there are certain parts are designed for development in order to have a balance of finance. I remember that is how the land is used, right? And so whether there will still be objection, I cannot foretell, right? But go ahead if you have.
Thank you, Vincent. Okay, one last question before the break. Oh, okay, a quick hand there.
Hi everyone, I'm Tiffany from Hong Kong. It's not a question, but a challenge for everyone. Same as Winnie, I had a dream after listening to all this presentation is that after I don't know how many years, but I hope that we're not listening to cases in Vancouver and overseas anymore, but we finally have case studies from Hong Kong. And I agree with Vincent that we need quick wins. So I think talking about Kowloon East or Kwun Tong might be a big dream for us, but I would like to challenge every one of you to go to Outplay Chow. That's where we just had an event called Ferry Aberdeen last Sunday. That's like Grand View in Hong Kong. You got sampans crossing the harbour. You got boat repair industry, which might be threatened by future development as there are more infrastructure happening and MTR is arriving. And yeah, visit there. There's fishing village and sampan noodles. And also you will see fishermen, how they live. And it's also the root of Hong Kong and where Hong Kong got its name from. So I would like to challenge all of you to go there and see how we can bring the Vancouver example back to Hong Kong. Thank you.
Great. I'm sure all of you would love to take up that challenge, right? We have many practitioners here, planners, architects. The opportunities are in your hands. So we are so happy that it's not just about Kowloon East, Atlejou, but the whole of Hong Kong. Okay, so that's the end of the first session. We now have a tea break. You are also most welcome to go up the deck and have a look at this beautiful waterfront. Thank you.